Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2U's of 2U's Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2U's Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode.
Hey, Marsha.
Hi, Kelly.
Good morning.
Good morning. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be the Marsha's weaving her butt off episode.
Anyway, well, before we get into that, how are things there?
Very wet. We had so much rain overnight that the dog dishes, which is my rain gauge, Robert said the dog dishes were almost totally full. We have those metal dog dishes. But the rain gauge said 1.5 inches.
Oh.
I think it was more than
that's a lot.
I think yes, but I think it was actually more than that because if the dog dishes were almost full, that's more like 2.5, 3 inches, 2.5 inches probably. So anyway, very wet, but no rain yet this morning. It's supposed to be rainy. It's supposed to be rainy all weekend, which is great.
Yeah. Yes, it's been very rainy here, but and warm. Because we had that really cold weather, it was down to 13 and 14. And now I took Enzo for a walk yesterday. It's 56. I was so hot. This is the thing about it. And I don't know if this is around the world, if it's like this for people, or if it's just us in the Pacific Northwest, or maybe it's just me. But whenever we have cold weather, then you'll have a day like 56. And it feels so hot to me. But then
the contrast
in the summer, and then in the summer, the first day that it's 56, I'm like, ooh, it's cold.
Right.
but
well, on Sunday, I went to Monterey to walk on the rec trail with the dogs. And it was supposed to be in the 70s, mid-70s, which is really warm for this time of year. It was like, okay, we're having some really weird warm weather. It was actually when I got the dogs, we were all very tired at the end. We did 9 miles and lots of shade along the way. And I was careful to take the shady side of the street and stuff. But when we got back to the car, the thermostat, the temperature gauge, when you turn on the car, it tells you the outside temperature. Anyway, it said it was 82.
Wow.
I know. There's something wrong with that, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. It was a beautiful day. The bay was gorgeous.
Yes. Well, I would say
crowded.
Enjoy the heat now, Kelly, because in July and August it'll be 52.
Yes. Exactly. So we did. We were out. We enjoyed it. We were out there for 3 hours, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it was very fun. I thought it wouldn't be super crowded because of the football playoffs, but actually there were a lot of people out there. It was a very crowded day on the wharf and the rec trail.
So now this is not part of your I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of
the Bay Area Ridge Trail.
Yes,
no.
This is not part of that. This is just the rec.
This is just training. Yeah.
Okay.
I decided I wanted to up the mileage on the flat. I'm upping the mileage on the flat. I got up to 8 miles of hills, so I went to 9 miles of flat, and for my long walk. So, and now I'm going to back it off a little bit. For the next couple of weeks, we won't go quite that far. So, but I want to get up to being able to do about 20, not with both dogs. They won't be able to do 20 together, both together. But I'd like for myself to be able to do like 20 because there are some of those little trail segments that by the time you go out and back to pick up, get back to your car, you might have, 16, 18 miles. So,
yeah. So this trail wasn't it like 400 miles?
Yeah, I think there's about 400 miles of trail.
But by the time it's done, all of the walking that you will do on the actual trail might be 800, right?
Right.
Because you have to do a lot of.
Yes.
You inspired me. We will get to projects, but I did go take Enzo around Green Lake the other day. I posted a picture.
I saw that.
He was not very happy. We got down there at 9:30 or something, and okay, what time is it now here? It's 9:49. He's flat on his side on the bed snoring.
Yeah. He's like, wait, this is nap time. This is not walking time.
Yes,
I didn't sign up for
happy
exercise in the morning.
No. So, but we went around and I thought it felt really good to walk. And that's only 3 miles.
That's good though.
But I was thinking, it's good. It's like you have to start somewhere, right?
Well, and that's a good daily distance, like, just a regular day's distance. And then, just the one day a week of getting longer and longer and longer. But yeah, no, that's great, Marsha.
So you are between your training and when you actually are doing the sections of the trail that are out and back, you might even get 1,000 miles on your body.
Oh, probably.
Like
well, we're talking years. I mean, yes, I think you're right about that. And then the other thing is that some of the trails, you can't access the trailhead by car, so there's also additional miles to get up to the trail. So but I'm not keeping track really of all that. I'm just I am marking if I did it out and back. I am marking that, but I'm not really marking anything about how much mileage it took me to get up to the trail. Or I haven't. I could, because I haven't done that many sections of the trail yet. But we'll be getting another section. I'll be getting another section of the trail on this weekend in between rainstorms, I hope, because we're going camping. So, and we're camping at Coyote Lake. So that's where one of the ridge trail segments is. And the segments are not contiguous. So it's not like the Appalachian Trail where you can, do the whole thing. There's gaps in between where they still haven't, where they, still don't have access. So the idea is for it to eventually be, but it's not there yet. So
yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad I inspired you, Marsha.
Yeah. So then I went, and so I've gone, well, not that much. I think I've gone about 3 times around the lake in the last.
That's a nice walk.
I don't know, week. Well, it's like I was going to say what I also remember about training too is when I finally put the training schedule, instead of just thinking, okay, I'm going to do this week, stuff would happen and I would set it aside. When I actually put the training on the calendar like an appointment, then everything else fell around it.
Yeah.
So that's what I need to do is just write it on the calendar and then schedule things around it.
Yeah. I'm sort of struggling with that right now because it's the second week of classes. So the first week of classes is difficult. I mean, well, it's not difficult, but it's like getting back into a schedule and a rhythm. And now it's the second week of classes where I really should have this on my calendar, like what I'm going to do, during the week, not just the long one on the weekend, but what am I going to do during the week? And I have struggled with that. So hopefully next week will be, I'll be back on track a little bit better. Don't F it up from my calendar.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to make a segue to our projects.
Oh, good. Okay.
2 things. What I was going to say, my segue, which is now a little slightly screwed up because another thought popped into my head, which is how my brain works. But my segue was, I think that also about scheduling things, I should schedule crafting, time to craft, time to warp the loom, time to go down and weave, time to knit, time to spin. I think I should put that on the calendar.
That's a good idea.
But no, the reason my segue is not working very well because this other thought popped into my head, which is you turn the page on the calendar.
Yes.
So what's the calendar say?
Yeah, it's February 1st when we're recording this. So I went, actually Robert had turned the page already. So I went down to go see it and the February says, "You're the worst." in the best way, which I love. So that one is family. That one is family friendly. But yeah, so it's fun.
Funny.
Yeah, changing the calendar. So all right. So projects. Are we ready?
Yeah. Do you want to go first,
Sure.
or what do you want to?
Yeah, I'll start.
Okay.
So right now I am continuing to work on my sock head hat out of the yarn you got me from Washington, D.C. from Looped. Loop. I think it's Loop. Anyway, the yarn shop in Washington, D.C.
All I know is I kept saying it the wrong way, so I don't remember.
It's one of
but
those
anyway.
two, Loop or Looped. It's in Washington, D.C. Cute little shop. Anyway, I'm continuing to work on this hat, and I've got probably 12, I want to say maybe 12 inches. And I was thinking, I mentioned the last time, this is a sock head hat, and I mentioned the last time that I was going to do the full ribbing of 9 inches. The pattern doesn't call for 9 inches of ribbing. I don't know where I got that idea, but I did do a lot of inches. I think I did almost 9 inches of ribbing because it folds up super nicely. And then I'm going to do, and I have tons of yarn. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to make the full-on slouch. We'll see. I might decide to do the crown decreases before I run out of yarn, but yeah.
I'm looking at your project on Ravelry, and it is 437 yards.
Yeah, it's a lot of yardage. So I won't probably use all of it, but it's quite large at this point. But when you
go in the leftovers will go in your blanket.
That's right. Speaking of, so I'll move on to my next project, which is the only other project that I have at the moment. Remember how I had said I run out of sock scraps, and so I have to build that up. But meanwhile, I was making strips. So I think I have now 10 or 11 strips. But last week I had the nicest surprise at work. I had just gotten there, and Aline, our friend Aline that we met at the Knockers retreat, she lives in the area. Anyway, she had tracked me down at work, at school, to my office, and she's like, I have a present for you. And oh, wow, that's really cool. She had this bag that she had full of a basket that she had made, a fabric, with quilting fabric, a basket that she had made, and full of yarn scraps, tons.
Oh, wow.
Huge. All kinds. So really cool. It was such fun to get that from her, and the fact that she, took the time to stop by. She lives in the area. And was on her way to swimming, I think was what she said. So anyway, thank you, Aline. It was a great surprise. And I've already made and washed squares, I think about 30 or more of them. So I'm, it's fun. And another thing I wanted to mention about this, remember how we were talking about color palettes? And do we have color palettes? And you said you thought you really didn't. And I don't remember if I said I thought I didn't or not. But I don't. I mean, I do. Whatever I said, I'm telling you now. Yes, I have a definite color palette because the color palette of all of these scraps is very different. Beautiful. I'm not saying that they're not, that I don't like them. Beautiful, but lots of dark colors and neutrals. And as much as I like blue, I mean, I always think of blue as my favorite color. I have very little blue in my yarn, my yarn choices. So I got a whole bunch of blues and lots of neutrals, browns, grays, dark, just darker colors, like some more jewel tones. Anyway, yeah, I definitely have a color palette, and this is going to add a little contrast. All of these yarns are going to add some contrast to the colors that I had in my stash. So I think that's really an interesting thing. If you get a bunch of scraps from someone, not pick them off a table like the D-stash, because then you're still
picking your color palette consciously or unconsciously, right?
Even if you're trying not to. Because a lot of mine were, some of them were things that, people were giving away at Stitches, little samples, yarn things. But there was choice. And I think that's why I ended up with the colors that I ended up with. Anyway, very fun. I'm having a great time with it. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention about this project, I think I'm noticing it because I have had a lot of experience with yarn. My new knitting self, or my new yarn self, way, way back in the day, I've talked about it. I really thought there was just one kind of yarn. There's like regular yarn, right?
Okay.
I literally didn't know that there were different weights of yarn in the yarn shop.
Oh.
And I mean, I didn't have that much experience going to yarn shops. I just knew about probably worsted weight. Like, to me, that was like regular yarn.
Yeah.
And I was spinning, and some of my yarn when I was spinning was too thin. Like, in my mind, it was too thin. This is not regular yarn. What am I going to use it for?
Yeah.
Right? Because this is not regular yarn. And I didn't have a concept of gauge. Like, I thought the gauge swatch was dumb because it just meant you had to buy more yarn.
Yes.
We've talked about this.
Yes.
And then I made an Afghan. One of the first projects I made was an Afghan of squares. It was one of those little books that you pick up in the, you can pick up at, like, I think I picked it up at, I don't know, Michael's or something. All these Afghan squares. And I didn't, think about it. I just went, when we would go places, I'd buy a yarn I liked without any concept of what weight of yarn it was. But it was always, in my mind, regular yarn. So I think it varied from like DK to Aran weight. It was just like, I look at the skein and it looks right. And so I would buy it. I didn't have that concept of weights of yarn. So now doing these little squares, it's very interesting because I have plied yarn, I have singles. Some of the plied yarn is actually cabled yarn where it's two plies or 3 or 4 two plies plied together. Sometimes it's a 2-ply that's really tightly twisted. Sometimes it's a 2-ply that's really loosely twisted. Sometimes it's like 4 or 5 plies, depending on what kind of sock yarn it is, right? Depending on the base. And it's really interesting to notice this about the yarns as I'm weaving these little squares. And it's also interesting to notice it and then compare how the woven fabric looks. Like the woven fabric from the yarn that you gave me, that Vesper sock that I said was very loosely plied. When the woven fabric there actually comes out bigger than the woven fabric from a really tightly twisted. One's more stretchy.
Sense,
One's more stretchy. And so anyway, that just that sort of mental exercise of, what kind of yarn is this? How is it made? How's it constructed? How does it look as a yarn? How does it look as a little square? How does it compare to my other little squares? That's been really fun. And my first thought was, this would be really good for someone who's new to do this because you would learn a lot about the yarns. But I also think that someone who's new might not even notice, right? Kind of like I didn't notice that I have singles in my Afghan. I have 2 plies. I have 3 plies. I have DK weight. I have Aran weight. The whole time I was knitting those squares, I never even knew to think about any of those things. So I'm not really sure that it would be like such a great experience for a new knitter to do this kind of project, or a new knitter or weaver to do this kind of project, because they'd notice all kinds of stuff about the yarn. I think maybe you wouldn't notice unless someone told you to notice. Because I didn't notice back, all those years ago when I was first starting. I had, it was not something I even really thought about. So, but it's been fun. I'm loving my little squares project.
Yeah. And your surprise gift.
Yeah.
Very nice of her to drop that.
That was super fun. It made my day. Yeah. Thanks, Aline.
Yeah.
So that's it for me.
Oh, okay. You need to get some things cast on. Well, you're wrapped up in this blanket. But,
well, I need to get some things cast on. I have a couple of ideas, but
I'm sorry. Is that a pun? Is that a pun? You're wrapped up in this blanket project.
That's good, Marsha.
I didn't even. That just came out. Anyway.
I do need a couple more knitting projects, and I'm hoping that I will be able to do something about that in my weekend camping trip.
Yeah. Well, I'll report in on my projects. I have a finished project.
Woo!
Woohoo! I finally finished my socks, the Knitterly Things Vesper sock yarn.
Right.
I finished those. And I finished them last night and wove in the ends. And I didn't put them on today. Oh, you know why I didn't put them on this morning? Because I wanted to photograph them. So I photographed them. So I have a different pair of hand-knit socks on. But anyway. And then I cast on, because I always do this. When I finish a pair of socks, I immediately cast on another pair of socks.
Oh, nice.
It's so nice just to have a pair of socks handy to knit on, which I'm knitting on them now. And it's yarn I bought at the Artful U years ago in Port Gamble over on, I think that's Bainbridge Island, I think.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, it's called the Artful U Clackamas, and it's merino silk. And
ooh, nice.
Guess what color it is, Kelly? I had to laugh. It's kind of a red-orange. Like everything I've made is red-orange. I thought, I was sort of, when you were talking about your color palette, I kind of I was chuckling to myself because I just cast this on. Anyway.
Well, I know you like red, so that makes sense.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, just kind of funny that so many things have been this color. Anyway, and then I've been spinning, and I don't know where I was the last time, but I finished the first braid and I'm about halfway through. As I said, the second, what am I talking about? The Malabrigo Nube Merino Braids. The second braid, I just split that in half and I've just been pulling off sections. So it's going to be long color repeats on that. And I finished the first half and now I'm, I've started a couple of days ago, the second half. So I'm getting there. Right. No progress on any other projects except we have to talk about my weaving project.
Yes. I want to hear all about it.
So first I have to say I did go, last Thursday is the Seattle Weavers Guild meeting. And I had things I had to do in the morning, so I missed the first half. But I got there about noon, I think, and they were just breaking for lunch. And I ran into our friend Kelly Brook, who connected me with a woman, her name is Marge, who gave us the new loom, the Claret. So anyway, it was nice because it took a break for lunch, so we were able to sit there and talk. Kelly had to leave, but Marge and I sat there and we talked quite a bit about the loom and ideas about how to warp it, because I had wound the warp, but I had not actually warped the loom. And so she had suggested using Rose Path. And so, which Kelly, as I say to you, every time I talk about weaving, everybody bear with me. I'm a new weaver. So I don't know exactly what I'm talking about, but the Rose Path, it basically goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I was watching a YouTube video and they didn't have that random 1. It just went 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, that way. So this one has this other thread in there, or I mean this other.
Yeah, that's
whatever. I'm not saying it the right way. Anyway,
no, that's right.
So then she wrote it out on a little piece of notebook paper. So let me just start back. I did one, I think it was last Thursday. I decided I can't stand it any longer. I'm just going to go put that warp on the loom. And the reason I was hesitant is because in class we were instructed that you should have a second person. So somebody's holding the warp and somebody's winding it onto the back beam. I have no one to do that. And I thought, I'm just going to go down there and do it. So what I did is the long warp, I would just wrap it around. This is not making any sense. But the chain, the warp chain, I would just wrap it around the front beam. And then slowly put some tension on as I wind it onto the back beam, release a little bit more, keep it tight on there, wind a little bit more. And does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I was doing.
Yeah, you're trying to keep a little bit of tension on it, like you have someone holding it. And there's lots of different ways that you can do that. And weaving back to front or warping back to front like you do, and like I learned to do, it's a lot easier to do that by yourself. In the Jane Stafford videos, her guild, she has a video at the beginning in season 1 where she talks about warping, and she says she always does have help because she uses books, and she'll go, like, oh, I think I want Marguerite Porter Davison to help me today, and so she has, I have these great weavers to help me today, and she has this stack of like 4 or 5 books that she puts on top of the yarn. And she puts it on the floor and it drags. Like the books hold it down, so it drags, but it has tension. And I don't have enough room. I don't have enough room to put it out on the floor usually, but I'll like put it on top of my my loom bench and then put the books on top of it, and the same do the same thing. So there's all kinds of ways to create that tension as you pull without having to have a person there to hold it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad you got. I'm glad you got that experience.
Well, and I'm just going to interject about Jane Stafford is that you were also, so one of the things we had learned is that you want to keep a lot of tension on this, right? And on your warp as you're winding on. That's why you want to have a person helping you. But I remember you also said that Jane Stafford said that you don't need to have as much tension on the warp, especially when it's all tied on and you start weaving. It doesn't have to be under as much tension as we think it needs to be.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of thought to myself, I think it's going to be okay, because once even if I don't wind it onto the back beam, okay, I mean, it wasn't like just hang super loose, but even if it's not under a tremendous amount of pressure or tension, once you tie it onto the front, and you will be tightening it, right? And so I thought it's going to be fine, right? So I did that, and then I threaded all that was one day, and I started threading the heddles. So it took me 3 evenings, I think, like 2 evenings and a day to get it all on there, thread the heddles, and the reed. And this loom is fantastic because you can remove the front beam. Well, okay, the board the board that goes across, that just lifts off. Then the roller, I guess that's actually the beam, that comes off. You can then remove the beater that holds the reed. That all comes off. So you can just put your bench right up there. And I should also say the pedals or the treadles or whatever, those actually come off too, but they're really hard to get off. So I just left them on there, and I found that the bench just sits right in there. Yeah. And right over those pedals. You have to be a little careful because all the weight has now come off the front. And the weight is on the back. So, you have to be like, if it's just sitting there and you're working on it, it's not a problem. But if you get up and like, definitely don't lean on it or anything, because it will just tip over. So you just have to be careful about that. But anyway, I got it all threaded, or it's all done. And I started I realized I did make a mistake. Is I do need to put in the floating selvages. Is that what you call that?
Yeah.
What's that line? I've started putting in the waste yarn, and I remembered about the floating selvages, so I have to stop and I have to correct that. I also have a mistake in there, and that 2 of the threads on the very far right are not catching anything. So they're not being woven at all, and I've just been doing plain weave.
Mm-hmm.
So I found, and I was too tired the other night, and I thought now is not the time to start fiddling with this when you're a little tired.
Right.
But I have to go down there, and I think the threading is twisted, and that's what's happened, why they're not catching because they're moving up and down, but they're not getting caught in the weaving. So I have to go correct that. But the other thing too, is I realized, okay, this rose path that was suggested, so what it was suggested to me, and I've warped it, but I don't know what the weaving pattern is now. So I have to find a video, or you said
I'm going to send you, I'll send you a picture after we're done recording from the Marguerite Porter Davison book of all the different things that you can get. Because you sent me the picture I have I just want to double check in my messages, the picture of the rose path threading that she gave you. And then I'll find that one in my green book, and I'll take a picture of all the different ways it looks depending on how you treadle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you have some choices to make.
And then, so I'm pretty excited about it, and I have to say I really enjoy warping the loom.
That's good.
I love
that's good because a lot of people don't.
So I can't remember I don't remember now the last time I know the last time we talked, I had to go wind the warp.
Right. That's right.
And it was a whole thing about, I do have to talk about this.
Yes, talk about that too.
There was a lot of comments in the thread, and I should also take a moment here just to say that I have not been active on Ravelry at all and responding to comments. So I will go in there and at some point and respond. But there was a lot of comments, and I did read them, and it was so funny listening back to that episode. Okay, I have a lot of things I have to say. Listening back to that episode while I was walking the dog, I got laughing so hard. Because at one point I said, well, I could actually just like roll dice and like blah, blah. I was saying all this stuff. And I thought, oh my God, you were insane. I was like, you're just insane. That's like the most insane thing. Like trying to find order, like my obsession with trying to find order. That was so funny. I was like, okay, you sound like a crazy person. Were you thinking that when I was saying that, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a good thing. I think this is why our friendship has worked for so long, because I keep you from going off that deep end, and you keep me following rules when it's necessary.
Oh my gosh. I was listening to that and I really thought, oh my goodness, Marsha, you're just like, so anyway, I start winding this warp. Because I don't think I had heard the episode when I wound the warp. I hadn't listened back to it. Anyway, I've been winding it, and I'm trying to figure out Fibonacci and anything. And it got to be just too much. And I just started winding that stuff on there. I didn't even care anymore. It's like, I'm sick of that color. I'm going to put this color on. So anyway, here's my analogy. Because it's like dog training. And side note, my friend Kim's dog is having some problems now when we go to the beach, chasing runners and bicyclists. And this is a real problem. This is bad dog behavior, and someone's going to get hurt, and bad things are going to happen. So I said to her, why don't we go down to Green Lake, and there's going to be a ton of runners and bicyclists, and we'll work on training, which we did. And by the end of it, he's not perfect, and I think neither of us would trust him at this point on the beach off leash. He still has more work to do. But at the end of that walk, 3 miles around the lake, he wasn't even looking other dogs. He wasn't even looking at bicycles. He was not even looking at runners. And my feeling was his brain is so overwhelmed with trying to figure out what we want him to do, and not do, and then just the sheer volume of runners and cyclists and dogs that he gave up. And I think that's what happened with me, is that my brain was just completely overwhelmed with trying to figure out what I was doing, that I gave up and just wound that warp. You
just became free.
I became free.
We forced you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so funny. Once I got beyond that, and that was a lot of learning about myself. I really like the very sort of meditative. Now I know that sounds weird to say that it's meditative, but the alone. It was in the evening. There was nobody around. I went down there. I just in the basement. Put some music on, and then I just got in. I had to figure out the pattern. And once I figured out the pattern, it was really easy just to keep moving through those heddles. Mm-hmm. And it's very rhythmic. You have to concentrate. So it's not like you can, I think it might be difficult for me at this point to listen to an audiobook.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Like knitting, knitting, you can watch YouTube and or Netflix, all that kind of stuff. But this is like, you really have to be in your head and concentrating. Yeah. And there's something really, really satisfying about that, I think, for, and meditative. And I think, Sunday, I finished last Sunday, and Kim and my brother came over and to make dinner, and I could hear them upstairs and in my kitchen. I could hear them saying like, well, where's whatever? And I'm like, okay, stay out of it, Marsha. Just stay out of it and just focus on now those last few threads that you have to get through the reed, and now reassemble the loom, because I had to reassemble the loom and everything. And so it's a really good practice for me. Thoroughly enjoy it. So
that's cool. Yeah. Well, I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited to have you be able to start the actual throwing of the shuttle and experimenting and seeing what happens with the, with that threading and rose path and what your colors do. And it's going to be really cool.
And I do have one technical question, because I went down there and because this is alpaca, but I put in the waste yarn, because I'm going to use, waste yarn. I put in cotton, and I just start, how when you first start putting in that waste yarn to get all those threads straight and even and everything. Is that okay? Or should I be using the alpaca?
No,
it's okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will use sometimes, I've used all kinds of things. When I first started weaving, our weaving instructor had us actually using rag scraps, rag rug, like strips of fabric. And there were all these balls with strips of fabric, and we even used that. It doesn't matter. I don't use those anymore, but I use yarn. But we all have enough of that yarn. We all have enough yarn. Yeah. I think they didn't want to waste yarn in the weaving class, which also is ridiculous, because there was an entire cabinet full of very ugly yarn that had been donated over the years. So
anyway,
well, fun.
I think this weaving is going to quiet my head a little bit, if that makes sense.
That's definitely true. And I think, like, I don't usually. Well, sometimes depending on the pattern, the threading, but a lot of times I don't listen to anything when I thread the heddles. Because it is something you have to concentrate on, and that concentration is easier just in silence, and it's nice. It is. I think it's meditative too. You do have to get yourself in the right mood. If you feel like, oh, I just want to, and sometimes I have to stop myself from this feeling like, oh, I just want to get to the weaving part. You can't rush. And that's the part that's good for me, the rules of how you have to thread, right? You can't just rush to throw yarn around. You have to step by step, and then there's steps you take to check it to make sure that you threaded it right and catch any mistakes. There's steps that you have to follow in that part of it that really are kind of meditative. Yeah, I would have to agree with you.
The other thing I just need to say too, because I realized in the last episode I was looking for a home for the Harrisville, and I found a home for it.
Oh, nice!
So my next door neighbor is she's a knitter, and I just texted her that this is kind of random and kind of weird that I was asking her this question, but I said I've got a new loom and I'm looking for a home for the old loom. Was she at all interested? And she's like, I'm kind of interested. So she came over one Sunday when Kim still had her tea towels on the Harrisville, and I said, if you want to come over now, Kim is weaving and you can see the loom in action. So she came over, and oh my gosh, like her eyes sort of lit up when she saw this loom. And then she's looking at the fabric, and she's like, is it okay if I touch it? The tea towels that were on the loom. And I said, and Kim's like, yeah, fine. You can touch them. That's fine. And of course, as you know, what the cotton tea towels are like on the loom is very different than what they're going to be like when they're off the loom and they're washed. Yeah. Right? The fabric changes. And so she's like, oh my gosh, looking at this fabric on the loom, it's so beautiful. And it just feels so great. She loved it. And then Kim said, well, if you want to see what they're like done, she said, here's the first set, because she had brought some bread for us to eat. And it was in that, and she had wrapped it up in one of her tea towels. And she said, here's one of the finished. And I got and I did not laugh out loud, but inside I was laughing because my neighbor, her eyes lit up, and I realized she's taken that first step into the rabbit hole. You could just tell when she saw that finished tea towel, it was like, I want that loom and I want to do this. You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was nice on the loom, and now I see the finished project. Oh, wow.
Do you remember when we were down at the Black Sheep Gathering and our friend Dagmar had the e-spinner? And I was really interested. She had it before someplace. Oh, she had it at Knockers, I think. Yeah, she had it at Knockers, and she brought it to the Black Sheep Gathering. And Kim was with me at the Black Sheep Gathering, and I said, you need to check out this spinning wheel. And Kim had always like, I don't want anything more than a drop spindle. I do not want to get in. I don't want a spinning wheel. I do not want that. And as she sat there watching Dagmar spinning, I could see on her face that she had gone into the rabbit hole. And this is the same thing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So anyway, she's out of town this week, but this weekend, she's going to come over and get it. And I told her that I'll help her get set up. She's a few things she's going to have to buy, and then I'll help her I can help her a little bit. Because the other thing too, Kelly, isn't that also a way you learn is by teaching somebody? Oh, yeah. You can also, you learn a lot. It reinforces it all in your brain. So I said, I'll help her get set up. And
that's fun.
But anyway, it's just funny. I think everybody has had that experience, has felt that or seen it on someone's face. Yeah.
We have a new vice president at the college, and I was in his office. We were having a meeting, and I reached into my bag and I took out I have a new fountain pen from Robert for Christmas. It's actually a 1940s nurse's pen, so it's white. Well, it's not white now. It's kind of cream color. I don't know if it was ever really white or if it was always kind of cream color, but it's celluloid. And so it's this really pretty kind of golden creamy color, and it has a gold nib on it. The nurse's pens had a stripe at the top. Black for the day shift, because day shift wrote in black. Green for the evening shift, because they wrote all their notes in green ink. And then red for the night shift, the graveyard. because they wrote all their notes in red. And so you could have a set of these pens and just keep them inked with the color that they were supposed to be.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So Robert saw it and he thought that was really cool. And so he bought this one.
So you have just the one pen.
I just have the
set,
one.
though.
Yeah. I have the day shift pen. And I don't think you had to buy them in a set. I think, you could buy the one that you needed for which shift you were on. Getting back to my story and stepping into the rabbit hole, I got the pen out and I started writing notes. And I look up and he's looking at me. He's like, "That is the most beautiful pen." And so I thought, okay, I need to tell him a little bit more about this. And so, I told him about it and I could just kind of see there was a little bit of a glimmer of, a fountain pen, and he was like, "Oh, I haven't thought of a fountain pen in a really long time." But it's the same kind of thing, that little glimmer that you can see of someone taking that first step into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, pretty soon the whole campus may be writing with fountain pens.
It's funny because mostly no one's interested. I mean, they see me writing with them. They don't ask questions. They don't say anything. I mean, we don't have a lot of in-person meetings, as many as we used to. So maybe, there's not as much opportunity for people to see it. But it's funny because he's the first person that's really just like been interested, and really noticed. So, but yeah.
I have a question about your fountain pens, and I know you have this upcoming trip to Florida. Do you take your fountain pens with you? And if you do you drain them of ink before you take them, or is that an issue on the plane?
I haven't flown. I haven't flown in a really long time, so I didn't have them before.
Okay.
You do have to be careful if you take fountain pens on the plane. If they have ink in them, you do have to be careful. You need to make sure that they stay upright. And you wouldn't want to write with them during the flight. And there's some pens probably are better than others. Like I have some that are really, they're when I take them out, I get ink on my hand. Some of the older ones, I get ink on my hands. Even with them just being in my bag, I wouldn't take one of those on the plane. So I'll probably take a couple of them. I might not. I might take pens that have cartridges instead of, just because I don't want to have to worry about it. But it is something people talk about. What are some of the steps? Full is better than half full. Because it's the air, it's the air pressure that creates the issues. So I don't know. I don't really want to have a big mess. So I probably, I hadn't thought about it, but I probably will bring the ones that I can actually use cartridges instead of filling them with ink. And then I, don't have to put the cartridge in until I get there. I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. I haven't flown in so long. I mean, travel is, even before the pandemic, I had stopped doing work travel because they made it so hard. All the paperwork.
Actually, have you flown at all since the pandemic?
No, The last flight,
your first trip
I had was in 2016 when we went to Arkansas. When we did the Ancestors tour. Yeah. So,
okay. Big adventure.
Not really looking forward to the flight, to tell you the truth, but kind of looking forward to the trip. So the conference should be really good.
Okay. All right. Let's just remind people, because we have other things we need to talk about, but just remind people the Winter Weave Along is going on. That ends March 31st. So hopefully I'll be done during the Winter Weave Along.
Oh, yeah. I would say you're right on track. That's good. And we had an idea. Shoe Dweller on Ravelry had the idea to do an Out of Hibernation Along, which I thought was pretty funny. And her real name is Jen. I thought that was a pretty fun idea. Things in hibernation. Actually, Marsha, we were calling you out. We were teasing you about your projects, your works in progress that you haven't touched for a long time. But the idea came up because a lot of people have such things. Jen's idea was to do an out of hibernation along, that you bring out. You might not have them actually in Ravelry and hibernation, but things that you haven't worked on in a while. Bring that stuff out and let's work on it. Mm-hmm. So, and Pat immediately said, yes, she'd be in for it. I'm in for it. Marsha, you said this morning that you were in for it.
Yeah. Well, because I've been called out. Yeah. I don't have a choice. I've been shamed into it.
Yeah. So we're starting today, February 1st, and ending June 1st. The only reason we're starting February 1st, instead of a couple days later when this episode actually goes out, is because Marsha likes symmetry. And so, as we all know.
Yes.
So the start date is February 1st and the end date is June 1st because it's like spring cleaning for your project pages. Mm-hmm. So this spring, all during the spring, we'll be doing, you'll have the opportunity to do some spring cleaning and get out those whips or projects that you have hibernating, either one, and get them finished.
Yeah. Yes, I have a few.
Actually, I do too. I'll say I do too. Doilies.
So let me think. Is that all we need to talk about?
Well, I have.
Ravelry.
Yeah, I just have tricks. I just have a quick little Ravelry tip. So, if you need yarn and you want to pretend that it's not you wanting more yarn, it's you wanting to help someone. You can go and look at your Ravelry friends stash. So there's a tab called Community, and there's a place under the Community tab that you can click that's Friends. And when you do that, a lot of people probably already know this part. When you do that, what you'll see is your you'll see your what they're working on, right? You'll see in the most recent pictures that your Ravelry friends have posted of their projects, which is kind of fun.
Or their favorites too.
Or in their favorites, yeah. And so, but the other thing that is up here is up at the top. It says search friends stashes. You can search friends projects, or you can search friends stashes. And if you click search friends stashes, then you get, the Ravelry search page, and you'll see all the things that they've been posting in their stash, their yarn that they've stashed.
This seems slightly sneaky, like looking in their medicine cabinet or something.
Kind of, yes. So, which a lot of people don't put their stash in Ravelry for this reason, but. And then when you look at the filters, one of the filters is status, and you can click will, trade, or sell.
Oh.
And then you get all the stuff that your friends have marked as things that they'll trade or sell. And so you can offer to trade or sell, or, offer to trade or buy the yarn and get new yarn and feel like you're doing your friends a favor by helping them do
Okay, but it doesn't say who the person is, though. You have to click on that. So, let me see. Like, here's here's Ethiopian cotton. If I click on that, here it is. Who it is? It says here down.
If you click the picture, I think.
Yes, here it is.
You have to click the picture.
Our friend Shelley. It's hers.
Okay.
So Sequoia Shelley.
Yeah. If you click the picture, you'll get that stash page of that person.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, this is dangerous.
So So, I mean, if you were in need of a particular type of yarn and you wanted to make sure that you were, getting it from someone, well, how much do you know your Ravelry friends varies. But you might want to look there first to see if somebody has that yarn you need because you were playing Yarn Chicken and you lost. Or you could just look and see what's in there and see something interesting and say, hey, I see you're interested in getting rid of this and I'd love to take it off your hands. Anyway, just a fun little Ravelry thing that I discovered.
Yeah, this is, there's some nice things in here that people are looking to trade or sell. So, yes, that's a really good,
and like I say,
really good tip.
You can
really
pretend that you're just being altruistic and helping your Ravelry friends destash.
Okay, I'm being quiet because I'm like scrolling through the. Okay, stop, Marsha. I'm scrolling through the page.
Yeah.
Oh, here's one I have. Knitted Wit Monet's Garden. I have a skein of this. Who has the other skein? Sequoia Shelley has the same skein. We have the same taste. I've looked at a bunch of them and they're hers. Anyway, okay, enough of that. That's a great tip, though.
So I think that's it for us.
Okay. I guess that's it. I think we'll just talk in 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Well, have fun camping.
Thank you. I will. Yeah, it should be
and
nice.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Celebrate your birthday over the...
Yeah, this is
your birthday camping trip.
This is my birthday camping trip, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. I will let you go. Have fun.
Okay, thank you.
We'll talk.
All right, bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2Us
doing our part for World Fleece.